Love is the absence of judgment by the Dalai Lama. And I wanted to share that because I know that with intrusive thoughts, they could come with a lot of judgment and about ourselves. And I just wanted to start with that because a lot of I've found, and it probably isn't a coincidence since I'm doing that course with Dickon, but in every group I've run, it comes back to love. You know, if you've done groups with me before, you've probably known that it's like kind of like, well, we're talking about anxiety and intrusive thoughts or OCD, but love is really the answer. And I think you'll start to see that more and more. So starting with that, also holding thought. So we are designed that we can squeeze our hands like this, like we can as human beings. But you start to do it and it starts to hurt. And that hurting is feedback. Like we're not designed to like always hold so tight, and it lets us know, oh, let me loosen up, because it does, you know, and we are designed in a way that we can hold on tight to our thoughts and we can bring them to life. When we get more into thought, I have like a really exciting, like a part of a movie where I wanted to show like the beautiful, like the gift of thought. It's in Paddington. I was like, should I do it? But I'm going to hold off. But thought is really a gift. We can use it to go back into our memories or picture our future, and these things come to life. Like, you know, if you hear a song, like on Ozark, it's like all like kind of 90s music in the first episode of this third season, maybe. And I'm like, makes me think of being a teenager and a young adult. And then you smell something and it brings you back. And then on the other side, you smell something or you have an intrusive thought, it brings you maybe to being a murderer or going to jail or being hated. And it's like, that doesn't seem like a gift, but it is all our imagination. And then when we can realize, oh, I've been holding on, you know, and it's obviously more than just intrusive thoughts. When we're holding tight, that recognition of the nature of thought will bring us back to life. Oh my gosh, it's actually not the circumstances, my thinking about it, you know. And I'm going to read something by Michael Neal that you'll see. It's going to flesh it out a little bit more, but that's it. We're designed that we can go like this, and then instinctively, like, you know, have you guys ever, you know, in some meditation things, they'll be like, you know, open your mouth, like let your shoulders drop, and some of that guidedness. And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that my shoulders were so tight up here. Or like, oh, I had this tension. And it's like, that's okay. We're designed that we can kind of hold tight. Or, you know, if you've kind of been bracing and then when something's over, it's that natural, oh my gosh, my boyfriend had a spot that actually super proud of ourselves because he showed it to me. It was like black. He's like, don't Google, which I wouldn't, but I kind of did because it was, I wanted, neither of us Googled. And he went to the doctor and it's fine. But it's that bracing. But love is letting go of the thinking, not trying to control the experience. So much of what we're going to be pointing you to, and what hopefully we have been, you know, it's built in us to feel better once we let go of thought. We get over the fearful state effortlessly. We have insights and common sense, you know, but we think it's like, oh, I'm going to think my way out of here, which we're going to talk a lot about rumination, when it seems like, wait, I'm having intrusive thoughts all day long, when it's actually rumination. And I know some people, and I'm going to read a lot of the intrusive thoughts that you all said, because I think there's beauty in hearing how somebody else has phrased it. I was going back and forth between like what I just kind of summarized, but I know when I've read something that someone has said, I'm like, you know, and so I didn't want to kind of take that away. But we can't think our way out of like, well, how am I going to think my way so it doesn't stop hurting me now? It just stops hurting, you know, and you'll see it hopefully. And I'm going to read you this a little bit short, but if like 3 paragraphs that Michael Neal sent out in his, imagine the mind like a train station, and there are trains leaving all the time to any destination you can think of. Some trains will take you up into the mountains of ecstasy, and others will take you down into the depths of despair. Some leave the station quickly and then lose steam, and they drop off in the middle of nowhere. And others are slow to start, but over time they take you exactly where you want to go, even if you didn't know where that was when you first got on board. Now, at times when there weren't many trains leaving the station, it would be relatively easy to hop aboard the trains taking you somewhere interesting and avoid the ones taking you nowhere. But the busier the train station gets, the harder it is to navigate. And you might even find yourself hopping from train to train, feeling incredibly active and busy, but never really getting anywhere in the process. Now imagine there was a foolproof way to instantly know whether a particular train of thought was taking you somewhere good. You wouldn't have to ride the train all the way to its destination to find out where it was headed. You could simply hop off at the next station and wait for another train to come along. Well, this is the role of fear in the human system. Whenever you feel fear, and it's also true for anxiety, despair, or hopelessness, or righteousness, anything else, but we're talking about fear. And whenever you feel fear, it's the design of the system letting you know where that train of thought is heading. It's telling you to be still or hop off the train and wait for a new train of thought to come along. It's not telling you anything about the world and not telling you anything about yourself. It's not telling you anything about your capability or your nature. It's just telling you there's nothing good waiting for you at the end of that particular train of thought. It's like pain. You feel a little bit of pain when you accidentally put your hand too close to a flame to prevent you from feeling a lot of pain and maybe even doing yourself some damage if you carry on towards the source of the heat. The discomfort of fear is there to warn you of the larger discomfort and risk of doing yourself some damage if you carry on thinking the way you're thinking. I've kind of been a lifelong scaredy cat, and like I've said before, I've come to see that fear doesn't have to hold me back. It's not even my nature. Freedom is my nature. But there's something about this notion that fear is on my side, that it's part of the kindness of the design that I find incredibly comforting. Knowing that there's something baked into my psyche, baked into all of our psyches from birth to protect us from the innocent misuse of our own imagination is kind of wonderful. And knowing that all fear is reminding us of is that we're feeling our own thinking. And that makes it considerably less frightening. When you don't have to be scared of fear, life gets a lot gentler and a lot simpler and a lot kinder. So that was what Michael wrote. And I have just a few things here that I had, Dickon was saying very same thing on Tuesday. And fear and its anxiety. You know, I know when we get caught up in these intrusive thoughts and they feel really weird, we do feel that fear, that anxiety, that dread, that hopelessness. And that suffering reminds us that we're caught up in thought and recognizing that, oh my gosh, it is thought. It's not anything about your nature, your future, who you are. You know, that recognition, it's my thoughts, sets you free. And when we feel fear, we're caught up in believing that feeling. And what we do, surrender, forgiveness, letting go, letting be. It's the opposite of what the ego wants to do. Ego wants to do more and more thinking, that rumination. I don't care. There must be a reason. I need to know with 100% certainty that I'm never going to do that. You know, but that's not simple. That's not easy. I'm going to show you this picture of a fork in the road. And I think I'll share that now because and I used to feel like maybe it was more like last year where I really would feel like this, like I would have come up to this kind of medical fork in the road. And it was just that I probably paused for a tiny bit, you know, and we come up here. And on the one hand, it's like, okay, I could add on some more thinking, some complication. You know, we don't want to be suffering, but we could, you know, that's kind of what it results in. Or there, it's like, oh, when you realize, oh, I have a lot of thinking going on. Surrender, forgiveness, letting go, letting be. And it's simple, you know, but also it's not like, oh, I'm going to think my way here. Because it's some days it's like, it truly seems like, oh my gosh, I was really caught up in my thinking. And some days, and this is my experience, you all have your own, but some days for me, it's like the mood is already kind of gone there. You know, Sari talks about like when we're on a bike and you're pedaling really fast and you stop, the pedals keep going. So sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm caught up in a thought storm. I've been ruminating. Oh my gosh, you know, we just have a human moment. You surrender, you forgive, but the pedals are still going. And so it's what I'm going to talk about too, is it can take as long as it's going to take to kind of settle and feel a bit hopeful, but it's when we I'm going to talk about it more, but having patience and having humor. You know, sometimes we're like, okay, I recognize it. I want to feel better right now. When is this thought going to go? When am I going to get over it? When am I going to stop? We're going to talk about that. But I couldn't find a great picture of quicksand because I wanted somebody lying in quicksand, but this was the best that I found. But this goes back to this surrendering, this letting go. The more you struggle to climb out, the more you sink. You know, that's so true for intrusive thoughts. You know, when you're like, I'm going to think my way to feel better, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. The more you struggle to climb out, the more you sink. It is not immediately obvious, but the way to get out is to lie back and stop struggling. This increases your buoyancy and you naturally float to the top where you are safe. And that is from the book, Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts. And it has definitely more CBT ERP approach, but there's so much beauty and so they talk about wisdom, and there's a lot of like the 3P stuff in there, 3 principle stuff as well, just because it's like these universal facts that it's really true, but we don't. And that's where I know people are like, where's the love? Where is the love in this intrusive thoughts? Like, why would I think about stabbing somebody or thinking thoughts that go against my nature? That's just, we're going to go more into that, but that's just a thought. Like, we don't know why we have these thoughts. The love is in, I'm going to figure this out. Why would I think that? You know, the love is like, oh, that went against my nature. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. Like our brain coming in and being like, you know, but it's just, all thoughts are really neutral, you know, we just have them for like whatever reason. And I'm going to talk to you about it, but it's coming up now. Somebody had written about having a thought, like kind of a mean thought about somebody else. And I usually don't really have any mean thoughts. I feel like I love everybody. Not that I didn't, but I was getting my nails done a few months ago, and a woman was in there. And then she was wearing like skinny jeans. And then I thought like her outfit was outdated. And then it was just like a flood of mean thoughts. And I was like, and I like literally got spooked, like, which can happen when you have these, which I know it's so simple, but it was almost like I couldn't stop it. And then it was like an evil, only mean thoughts coming about her. And I think what happens sometimes, it's, I don't know, we have one thought and then I don't know, there's no point in trying to make sense of it, but I got scared. And then I'm like, oh, wait, still meaningless. Like I'm not suddenly evil, but it scared me because it did feel like against my nature, but just for a minute. And then I didn't use a technique. It wasn't like I was like, stop, surrender, but I just realized, oh, it felt weird because I don't usually have those thoughts, and I let it go and then they flowed. And literally, you know, and then I was back on to thinking about something else. But all of those thoughts are really, they're all the same. We're so much more similar than we think. Something that I've been liking thinking about is in the Tao of Pooh is Wu Wei, which I feel like is what we're talking about with like laying back, is this art of non-action, to embrace flow instead of effort to achieve a result. Like, okay, we all want to be content. We all want to be happy, but maybe in this moment, we want some freedom from these intrusive thoughts, you know? And it's like, sometimes we try really hard and then we're like, oh wait, actually, maybe that's made them stickier. So I like what they wrote in this book about Wu Wei. Without doing, causing, or making, but practically speaking, it means without meddlesome, combative, or egotistical effort. It seems rather significant that the character Wei developed from the symbols of a clawing hand and a monkey, since the term Wu Wei means no going against the nature of things, no clever tampering, no monkeying around. And the nature of things is that our thoughts are designed to flow. We're designed to come back into balance, you know, and also we're designed to have a lot of thoughts that we can't control, you know, but we are designed to come back into balance. And this was the last thing on that, but let me see if I can read the top. Just how do you do it, Pooh? Do what? Asked Pooh. Become so effortless. I don't do much of anything, he said. But all these things of yours get done. They just sort of happen, he said. And I think it's like, because a lot of times when I've had people that have noticed like, oh, I was feeling panicky, or I had intrusive thoughts, or I felt anxious, and then I just kind of recognized something and I don't really know what happened, but I started to feel better. And it's like, and sometimes you might be able to say, oh, I did this, but I hear it again and again. And it's like, oh, it just sort of happened. And it's that kind of paradoxical effect of the less effort we put, because often what we do is then we add on more thinking and some judgment, and we can't think our way to peace. It's just what's built in.